Hi guys, welcome back to video number 4 in the 0 to 12K 30-day surplus fund mini course. In this video, we're going to be covering some logistics, kind of how to process deals and get them paid out so you actually can make money. Now, the reason why I'm qualified to make this video again is because my program Surplus Fund Mastery and my company surplusfund.com has helped now over 1,100 people start their very own surplus fund business from home and make money doing it. Thank you for getting to video number 4. I know we've done a lot of these videos. And if you haven't watched those other 3, okay, number 4 comes after 3 and 3 after 2 and so on. So I would go back and I'd watch those first. Otherwise, this stuff's not going to make any sense. And finally, if you enjoy these videos and you want to potentially get access to some of our lower level programs for free, please subscribe and click the notification bell, because once a month I do a little post and I give away a little free mini course that we have that only people pay for, but I give it away for free for the first couple people that see it. But in order to see it in time, you do need to have the notification bell on, and you do need to be subscribed. As well as you should be subscribed, because I post guides like this all the time. So if you want to see more of this, subscribe. And even if you don't like it, subscribe anyway, so you can at least give me a downvote quicker. All right, enough of the intros. Father Spence is back to give you guys another amazing, amazing guide, okay? By the way, I like that name. That's kind of funny, okay? So in this video, we're going to be covering some logistics, okay? We're going to be covering exactly how to get contracts, and we're covering exactly how to actually get paid doing surplus funds, and not like, oh, you can make money doing it, but the actual process that it takes to process the deals and all of that. And by logistics, I know some people, they didn't know what I meant by that. What logistics is it's closing the deal easier for you, okay? It's setting things up in a way to where it's convenient for the close to happen, okay? Convenient. That's the key word, convenient. If something's extremely difficult, people are not going to be like jumping out of their socks to come and work with you, okay? But if you make it really convenient for them, they're going to be a lot more likely to want to work with you. So that's what logistics is. Obviously, getting contracts, that's getting access to the paperwork to actually close deals. I'm going to show you guys a really simple couple ways to do that, depending on what niche you're in and what state that you're in. And then getting paid, I'm going to go over some of the typical processes there and share that with you guys as well. Now again, if you guys have not seen the previous videos, I showed you guys how to get leads. I showed you guys how to actually market and talk to people and close deals. And in this video, we're wrapping up with actually how to close the deal with paperwork and the correct process to do it and all of that. But if you haven't seen those, make sure you guys click the link down in the description and watch the previous videos, because this is not going to make sense if you don't do that. So logistics. Again, this is the art of making things convenient for your client. And there's a few things that we can do to make things convenient, not only for your client, but for really for yourself and your own business, okay? The first thing is a couple rules. Number one is, anytime we're sending out a contract, we want to send it out FedEx. We want to get it there as quickly as possible. Now, we don't need to pay like $500 to ship something, but if we can, pay for it to get there in a day versus wait a week, and it's $20 more, we're probably going to send it in a day, because you got to strike while the iron is hot, okay? Someone might be really excited to do something right now, but then you wait a week and it's kind of died down, okay? So if they're really excited about it, like, hey, I can get the contract out to you tomorrow or the next day, and then figure out a way to do that, okay? And we always recommend that you FedEx it, and you throw it in a nice envelope. And again, if you can throw it like first class or whatever it takes to get there as soon as possible would be the best, okay? That's number one. Now, number two is reminders, okay? So I talked about in the last video how, if you close with, hey, let's book a call next week or in the next couple days or whatever, so that we can, get on a call together. I can walk you through the contracts and we can sign them and everything will be good. And they say yes to that. That's awesome. But what you'll start to realize is like 50% of people or more probably won't show up, okay? And this is for a variety of reasons, but there's a lot of these reasons that you can fix, okay? And obviously, the more people that show up to this meeting, meaning like a follow-up meeting to actually sign the contracts, are much more likely to actually sign the contracts, okay? So a couple things that you can do. The first thing is you can have them book the actual appointment in their calendar, or you can send them a calendar invite yourself, whichever one's easier. I probably would recommend sending them a calendar invite yourself, because, it's probably going to just be easier for them, okay? But actually have an appointment in their calendar. The second thing is, of course, you can follow up with them. So 3 days before the call, okay, I would text them and say, hey, hope things are going well, just thought of you, send them a cool picture or something that makes you sound more like a human being, okay? Then a day before the call, I would text them again and say, hey, I just wanted to, see if we're still good for the call tomorrow, super excited about it, I really think I can help you guys, da-da-da, okay? Then 3 hours before the call, I would text them again and I would say, hey, I just wanted to make sure we're still on for today. Can you just shoot me a text and say, yes, we're good. I'm really excited about getting this done, and I think the X amount of money that you're owed can really make a big difference in your life. So you're keeping them engaged, you're keeping them excited about it. And again, I use text as an example, but feel free to voicemail. Feel free to actually call them, send them an email. In fact, you should be doing all of these things. Now, if you want an automated way to do this, a great software is called Calendly, okay? And what you can do is you can book an appointment using their information, and it'll just send them, pre-written messages, emails, text messages automatically. Now, I still recommend you kind of call them again in between to remind them, or at least leave them a voicemail. But this will help you do the texts and the emails automatically. And the cool thing is, it's like super cheap. I think it's like $10 a month, so it's really not that expensive. Okay, now the next thing is you want to have a mobile notary, okay, in the area, and you want to have them go to, have the mobile notary go to them. You don't want to have them go to the mobile notary. Now, of course, if you can't find one, which would be kind of crazy, or if they live out like the middle of nowhere, which is probably more likely, or something along the lines of that, and they have to go somewhere, then that's fine. But it's much more convenient for them if someone just can come to their house and sign the documents versus making them get in the car and drive to a post office or a bank or whatever, okay, to get something signed. It's just too complicated. And it's too much effort, and a lot of people are going to be like, I'd rather just not do that, okay? Which doesn't make any sense. I know it doesn't make any sense, but people don't make sense, okay? Trust me, this happens all the time. People would rather sit on their couch than go and recover a fund for $20,000, but all they literally have to do is sign some contracts. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. We'll talk more about notaries later. In some contracts, it's not necessary. In some states, it's not necessary. In some states, it is. So obviously, if you don't need a notary, then you don't need a notary. You don't need to hire one to go there for no reason, just to be, just to get extra credit. Okay, that's not a thing. But if you do need a notary, again, it's always better to have the notary go to them than have them go to the notary. Okay. Now the next thing you want to think about too is if it's possible, and if you happen to be nearby them. In a rare case, if a client is super, super skeptical, offer an opportunity to meet them in person, okay? And say, hey, you know what? Let's sit down together, and I can even have a notary come with you. And why don't, hey, if your husband has to sign these too, why don't you have him come? Or if your brother or sister has to sign these too, why don't you have them come? We can all do it as a group, okay? That's kind of another logistical way to do it. Now, you don't always want to do that. You don't want to rely on that because that's a slow process. And it's unnecessary most of the time. But if you happen to be in the same area and they're skeptical, you can always offer, hey, let's meet at a local area. Now, this is tough right now. We're in the middle of quarantine. I get all that. But you don't necessarily need an office to do this either. You can meet at a park. You can meet at a Starbucks. You can meet wherever. Just offer it if they need it, okay? Because that may be the difference between you getting a deal and not getting a deal. And obviously, if you're going to make $10,000 from a deal, it's worth meeting them for an hour at a Starbucks or at a park or wherever. Now, the last thing I want to discuss logistics-wise that kind of leads us right into contracts is you need a simple way to explain the contract, okay? Now, look, if they have questions, then feel free to go more in depth about your contract and explain it. But you don't need to sit there and read word for word for them. You want to give them a short summary, and you want to say, hey, you should read this. Here's what it actually means, or here's what it means. Obviously, please do your due diligence. Please read this. I'm not rushing you at all. But this is just a quick summary so we can get through and sign it. If you want to read it before, feel free, okay? And what that's going to do is, if you have a very simple and kind of practiced, like almost rehearsed explanation of the clauses of the contract or of what the contract is, you're going to sound a lot more professional, and it's going to be a lot better than you sitting there trying to explain it word for word. Because the thing is, most of you guys are not attorneys. So most of you guys are not going to understand every single word on the contract. And if you try to explain it like that, it's just not going to sound very good. Okay, so again, have a simple way of explaining the contracts. And that leads us right into, okay, well, I need a simple way to explain it, but how do I actually get the contracts? And it really just depends on a couple things, okay? The first thing is if you're doing state funds or not. As I mentioned, there are several states that you can go to and you can literally, they give you a contract. You can just use the contract that they have. And then there's also some other states that they don't necessarily give you a contract to use, but they give you a sample of what a contract should look like. And you can really just bring that and have someone make that for like $50. That's an attorney, obviously, and make that up for you. So it's really, really, really simple. Now, there are some states that don't have either of those things. And if that's the case, then you fall into the same category that mortgage funds and tax funds people do as well, which basically is you need an attorney to make your contract, okay? Now, there's places online you can go and you can get a cheap contract. The problem is you don't want to do that, okay? As I mentioned in, I believe it was video number 2 of this series, every state is very, very different, okay? So if you try to take a contract from one state and bring it to another state and don't have anyone look at it, you're probably going to mess something up and you're probably going to do something illegal, okay? So don't do that. Make sure you have an attorney write you a contract. Now, the other way, again, unfortunately, I can't do this. Now, again, unfortunately, I can't give you our contracts because I give our students in Service of Mastery our contracts. We actually have an attorney that went through and wrote contracts for state funds, for surplus funds, for mortgage funds, for tax funds, and all of that. Unfortunately, I can't give you that because, again, this is a free YouTube series. It wouldn't be fair to all the people that joined. But, again, all you need to do is you just need to go and hire an attorney, and basically he or she needs to do some research into the state, the laws of it, and then they need to write you a contract accordingly if they don't already have one that works, okay? Now, this is why it's very important that you understand how each state operates. Logistically, there are some states that you personally cannot claim the money in your name, meaning it has to go through an attorney. And there's other states where that's not the case. It doesn't have to go through an attorney. And then there's other states where it can't go through an attorney or yourself. It has to go through the client, okay? And in those states, you want to create a joint bank account with the client and, you know, basically deposit the check where you and the client are both in the bank account, and that way you can both take your equal, or you can both take the amount that you are owed, and you don't have to worry about invoicing someone and following up with them to get paid and all of that, which is a giant hassle, okay? Now, another reason why you don't want to get a really, really cheap contract from, someplace online that doesn't have a real attorney writing them is because they don't know what they're doing, okay? There's a lot of clauses in contracts that you don't necessarily need, but if you have it in there, it makes everything way easier, and it makes your ability to help your client as well as make more money infinitely easier, okay? An example of this is something called a homestead exemption, okay? Now, I'm not going to get into the legality of this. Quite frankly, I'm not a lawyer, and I think my explanation of it on here would just confuse people more than anything. But essentially, in California, you don't necessarily need a homestead exemption to close a surplus fund deal, specifically a mortgage fund deal. But if you have it and you present that, you can actually end up, in some cases, making more money or being able to close a deal that wouldn't normally be able to have been closed, okay? Simply by just having an extra, one-page document for the homestead exemption. But this is something that if you don't have an attorney and you just have someone really, that doesn't know what they're doing, do this for you, it's just not gonna work. Okay, it's just not gonna work. So I would really, really recommend that if you're doing mortgage funds, you're doing tax funds, that you either get a contract from someone that has legit contracts, that they have closed deals, whatever, or you hire an attorney for a couple $100, maybe $500, and you have them make you a contract that is, done correctly. Okay. And I really wish there was a cheaper and easier way to do it, but I mean, there's not. Like, at the end of the day, if you want to do this correctly, you need to make sure your documents are correct. And, this is something that if you do incorrectly, can not only lose you money, but it can actually get you in trouble. So, like, there's no cheat code. Like, you need a good contract at the end of the day. And more importantly, you need to know the correct way of running this business in that state. And that's why paying an attorney to make you a contract and tell you the right way to do it is just so worth it. Or, finding someone who, again, already has all those pieces and all of that is so important. Okay, so the last main thing we're going to talk about in this video is the actual process to getting paid. And it's a little bit different depending on, again, if you're doing state funds, if you're doing mortgage funds, if you're doing tax funds. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of take you through each of them. And unfortunately, it's going to be different in every state. But I can kind of give you a general idea of how it's going to work, okay? So we'll start with state funds. With state funds, there's really only two ways that it works. Okay, the first is that you send the contracts to the client signs them, and then you just submit them to the state. And then after a period of time, they review it, whatever. They send you a check for your percentage, and they send your client a check for their percentage. The only other difference, or the only other way that I've seen this ran personally is, again, with state funds, they sign the contract. Everything's the exact same, except instead of you getting a check, they just send the full thing to the client and then you invoice them. Some people get really scared about that, but you got to remember that you have them under legal contract, so they'd be pretty stupid to not pay you, okay? So at that point, you just send them an invoice for your 10%. And if you've done well, if you've built a relationship like we talked about in the last video, really it's not that difficult, okay? So that's state funds. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It's one of the reasons why I like it for beginners, because quite frankly, you don't have to worry about attorneys most of the time. You don't have to worry about processing, and you'll see in these ones they can get a little bit more complicated, okay? Now with mortgage funds, and of course, guys, some of you guys that are more advanced, there's like a billion different ways this could go, okay? You could do a buyout. You could use an attorney. You could not use an attorney, depending on the state. Okay, some states require you. There's a million different ways to go, but I'm giving you a general rundown. So no angry comments that I missed something. I know I did, okay? Because there's no way I'm going to explain every possible variation of this. Same thing with tax funds. But with mortgage funds, there's usually a couple ways. So there's states that require an attorney. There's states that do not require an attorney. So I'll put an A with an X through it, okay? And then we'll start with that, okay? So states that require an attorney, you absolutely, first of all, need an attorney, number one, obviously, okay? And number two is basically how it typically works, and this is not always true, is you'll recover the money, okay, or you'll get them under contract, send the contract to the attorneys. The attorneys will go and deal with everything, the trustee and all of that, okay? Then they will get sent a check for the full amount, and then the check will get distributed between, obviously the attorney will get their percentage, you'll get yours, and then the client will get the rest. Okay, that's how typically it works with states when you have an attorney. Okay, that's not always the case. No. Okay, again, that's not always the case, but it's typically how it works. Now, the other option is if you don't have an attorney, and like I've heard people use escrow accounts for this. Honestly, guys, I pretty much always use an attorney because I feel a little bit. First of all, it gives you a little bit more authority when you say, okay, me and my team, and yeah, my attorney can go ahead and handle that. But on top of that, it just makes things a lot easier, okay? And yes, you have to pay them, but I mean, it's better than messing something up legally, okay? So escrow accounts can work. The other thing that can work too, as I mentioned, like a joint bank account, so you can literally create a bank account with your, with your client and basically open it together. Now, again, that only works in certain states, but that's where doing your research comes in mind. Now, tax deals are similar to this, okay, but they're a little bit different in that there's something called a redemption period. Now, a redemption period is basically the time that you have to wait, okay? I'm not going to go too in depth on this. To be quite frankly, I don't consider myself a tax fund expert. That's my business partner, David. If you guys don't know, my business partner, David, he's a 50-50 owner of Surplus Fund Mastery and SurplusFund.com and the head coach over there. And he is actually the one that's full-time running this business. He does deals all over the country. Recently, he started doing a bunch of tax fund deals in kind of the Florida area and has been just killing it there. But he's done mortgage fund deals. He's done bankruptcy stuff. He's done a bunch of state fund deals, a bunch of mortgage deals as well. That's actually where he got started. So he's been killing it, and he is really the tax fund expert. But again, it's one of those situations. Now, I will say with tax funds, a lot less likely that you're going to need an attorney, okay? There's a lot of states where you don't need an attorney with tax funds that you do with mortgage funds. So keep that in mind. Again, for your first couple deals, I would really recommend that you have an attorney work with you, even if it's just for one or two deals so you can get it kind of under your belt if you don't necessarily need one. Or I would find someone who can, like, who's done it before, who can guide you through it and, who knows how to get results, basically, okay? So again, these are kind of the three different ways deals can go, okay? With state funds, it's really, really easy. You just send the contract in, and then you either get paid directly or the state sends you, the state sends the full amount to the client, and then you just invoice them. With the mortgage funds, you have the option of attorney. Obviously if it's required, you have to go with that. No attorney, you can do that as well. There's also another thing called a structured buyout, which I'm not going to teach on this YouTube video because it's a very advanced strategy. It requires that you have capital, and not that you guys don't have capital watching this, but this is a beginner level program, and I don't want to teach something too advanced that I'm not comfortable teaching on a free YouTube video, to be quite frank with you, okay? And then with tax funds, the contracts are going to be different, obviously, because this is a different type of surplus fund. But more importantly than that, the key thing to remember here is, again, having someone guide you through the process, whether it's the attorney or someone, again, that's doing the business that can walk you through it. They're going to be able to really walk you through the tax fund process. Because it's different in every state, just like the mortgage fund process, to be fair. I'm just more comfortable with that because I've done deals there and I know how that works a lot more than tax funds. So to wrap this up, and as a thank you to you guys, I actually made a written version of this full program that comes with checklists and everything. It's about 100 pages long, and it's really, really, really amazing content. And I'm actually giving this to all you guys that watch to the end 100% for free. All you gotta do is go to the link down in the description and click it. It'll ask for your email address and your name, and then you will get instant access to this, as well as the full playlist with all of the videos in this course. So if you guys enjoyed this and you guys want more of these courses, again, click that subscribe button, click the notification bell, and you'll get notified the next time I upload one of these courses. And you'll also get notified when I do that post once per month, where I give out 2 free courses of my Killer Closer course that, again, normally we charge for, but because you're awesome and because you're getting notified, you're going to be potentially one of the first 2 people to get that and get it for free each month. So make sure you guys, again, have that notification bell clicked, subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.